The cabin lights were dimmed to a soft blue glow. Passengers flipped through movies, sipped coffee, or slept with blankets pulled to their chins. The hum of the engines was steady and reassuring, the kind of sound people trusted without thinking. Outside the windows, the sky was endless and clean, clouds stretched like white oceans below. In the cockpit, Captain Robert Hale checked the instruments for the 100th time out of habit, not concern. 25 years of flying had trained his eyes to notice what others couldn't. Everything looked fine. Then it happened. A sudden bang tore through the aircraft like an explosion. The plane shuddered violently, pitching left. Overhead, bins rattled. A woman screamed before she even knew why. In the cockpit, warning alarms erupted all at once. "Engine 2, flame out," the first officer shouted. "Hydraulics pressure dropping. Flight controls lagging." Captain Hale grabbed the yoke, fighting the unexpected pull. The aircraft dipped, nose falling, as if the sky itself had vanished beneath them. In the cabin, oxygen masks dropped with a snap. Passengers gasped, some fumbling, others frozen in shock. Children cried. A man shouted prayers in a trembling voice. Seat 18A, Ethan Brooks, 11 years old, small for his age, brown hair falling into his eyes. He had been staring out the window moments earlier, imagining the clouds as mountains, when the world suddenly changed. His heart pounded, but he didn't scream. He listened. Up front, Captain Hale tried to stabilize the aircraft, sweat forming on his temples. He had seen emergencies before, bird strikes, engine failures, severe turbulence, but this was different. The plane wasn't responding the way it should. "Check backup systems," Hale ordered. The first officer's hands flew across switches. "Backups unstable. Sir, we're losing control authority." The altimeter unwound faster than it should. 10,000 feet lost in seconds. Hale keyed the radio, his voice tight but professional. "Mayday, mayday, mayday. This is Flight 709. We've suffered catastrophic engine failure and partial flight control loss. Request immediate vectors." The response from air traffic control was quick, but uncertain. "Flight 709, radar contact unstable. Say intentions." Hale looked at the instruments again. They were lying to him, or worse, telling the truth. The plane bucked violently. A sickening silence followed as one of the alarms died. Not because the problem was fixed, but because the system itself had failed. The captain exhaled slowly. He pressed the radio again, voice breaking despite his effort to hold it steady. "Mayday, we've lost control. We're dead." The words went out over every connected frequency. In the cabin, panic fully took hold. A flight attendant fell to her knees, bracing against the aisle. A father clutched his daughter, so tightly she cried out. Someone vomited. Someone else fainted. Ethan's mother grabbed his hand. "It's okay," she whispered, though her eyes said she didn't believe it. Ethan felt fear, real fear, but beneath it something else stirred, a memory, a voice. "Remember the basics," his father had once said, seated beside him at a simulator. "Planes don't want to fall. You don't fight them. You guide them." His father had been a pilot, commercial. Before he passed away 2 years earlier, they spent hours together on flight simulators at home. Ethan learned the sounds, the rhythms, the logic of flight. It wasn't a game to him. It was a language. Now that language screamed in his head. The plane dipped again, harder this time. Screams echoed. Ethan unbuckled his seatbelt. "Ethan," his mother cried, "sit down." He didn't answer. His legs shook as he stood, gripping the seatbacks as the plane lurched. A flight attendant tried to stop him. "Sir, sweetheart, you have to stay seated." "I need the cockpit," Ethan said. She stared at him, stunned. "What?" Another violent drop threw her against the wall. In that moment, rules didn't matter. Survival did. The cockpit door was already unlocked, standard during emergencies. Inside, chaos reigned. Captain Hale and the first officer were fighting the controls, alarms blaring, altitude bleeding away. Neither noticed the small figure at the doorway until... "No, we're not." The voice was calm, clear, young. The captain turned sharply. "What?" Ethan stepped forward, pale but steady. "We're not dead." For a moment, no one spoke. The first officer blinked. "Is this a joke?" My dad was a pilot, Ethan said quickly. He taught me simulators. I know what a flame-out feels like. I know this plane can still glide. The aircraft shuddered again, tilting dangerously. Captain, the first officer said urgently, we're running out of options. Hale looked at the boy, really looked at him. The fear was there, but it was controlled, focused. What do you know about this aircraft? Hale asked. Ethan swallowed. It's heavy, but it wants to level if you trim it right. You're overcorrecting. That's why it's fighting you. Silence. Then Hale loosened his grip, just slightly. The plane steadied, just a little. Both pilots froze. Ethan stepped closer, pointing at the instruments. You're chasing the nose. Let it fall, then guide it back. Don't force it. The captain hesitated. 25 years of training told him this was impossible. 25 seconds of reality told him he was out of time. Another alarm screamed. Terrain warning. Pull up, the system shouted. Ethan shook his head. Not yet, you'll stall. The first officer stared at the altitude. Sir, he might be right. Hale's hands trembled as he adjusted the trim the way Ethan indicated. The plane stopped fighting. Not fixed, not safe, but flying. The cabin felt it too. The screams softened into confused murmurs as the violent drops eased into a rough glide. Ethan exhaled for the first time. See, he said quietly, we're still in the air. Captain Hale stared at the child, heart pounding. Outside the cockpit, 200 lives hung between sky and earth, and standing between them was an 11-year-old boy who refused to believe the words, "We're dead." Flight 709 glided through broken clouds, battered but alive, the engines whining unevenly like wounded animals. Inside the cockpit, every alarm that still worked continued to scream. But now there was something else in the air. Focus. Captain Robert Hale loosened his grip on the yoke and forced himself to breathe. His heart was still racing, but the wild terror had retreated just enough for training to return. The boy stood between the two pilots, one hand resting on the center console to keep his balance. How long can we glide? Hale asked. Ethan glanced at the airspeed and altitude, doing the math in his head. His voice was quiet but steady. About 15 minutes, maybe less if we lose lift. The first officer's eyes widened. That's it? Ethan nodded. Unless we find a runway or water. No one liked the second option. Air traffic control crackled through the speakers, confusion layered with urgency. Flight 709, we show you descending rapidly. Say souls on board and intentions. Captain Hale pressed the transmit button, then paused. He looked at Ethan. What's our best move? Ethan hesitated just for a second. The weight of the question hit him hard. 200 lives, families, children, people who would never know his name. There's a regional airport southeast of us, Ethan said. Short runway, but enough. We won't make the big one. The first officer typed rapidly. He's right, we're too low. Hale swallowed his pride and keyed the radio. ATC, Flight 709 declaring emergency. We are attempting glide to Ridgeway Regional. There was a pause, then controlled urgency. Flight 709, cleared any altitude. Emergency cruise rolling, wind calm. You are our only aircraft. Only aircraft. Only chance. The cabin was eerily quiet now. Passengers sensed something had changed. The violent chaos had softened into a tense stillness. People clutched hands. Some prayed silently. Others stared straight ahead, afraid to hope. Ethan's mother sat frozen in her seat, tears sliding down her cheeks. She didn't know where her son was. She only knew he had stood up when everyone else had given in. In the cockpit, the terrain warning system screamed again as hills appeared on the display. Too low, the first officer muttered. Ethan leaned forward. We need to trade speed for lift. Gently. If you pull too hard, we're done. Captain Hale nodded. You talk, I'll move. Ethan took a breath. Okay, small inputs, ease. The nose rose slightly. The plane shuddered, then smoothed out. That's it, Ethan said. Don't chase it. Sweat dripped down Hale's back as he followed instructions from a child who had never flown a real plane before, yet somehow understood this one better than anyone. The runway lights appeared in the distance, small, faint, almost unreal. There, the first officer said, we've got visual. But the angle was wrong. Too high. Too fast. No engines to recover if they missed. We won't stop, Hale said. Runway's too short. Ethan stared at the lights, his heart pounding louder than the alarms. Then he remembered another lesson. Planes don't stop when you want them to, his father had said. They stop when you respect them. We'll land hard, Ethan said, but straight. No flare. Let it hit. Hale hesitated. Every instinct screamed against it. Ethan looked him in the eyes. Trust me. The captain nodded once. Gear down, Hale ordered. The landing gear dropped with a heavy clunk that echoed through the plane. Passengers screamed again as they felt the shift. Ethan's hands shook now, but his voice didn't. Line up, little left. A good hold speed, don't pull. The ground rushed up terrifyingly fast. The wheels slammed into the runway with bone-jarring force. The plane bounced once, hard. Hold it, Ethan shouted. Hale fought the urge to correct too much. The second bounce was lower. The third, gone. They were on the ground, but not stopped. The end of the runway was coming fast. Brakes! Hale yelled. The first officer slammed them. Tires screamed. Smoke filled the cockpit. The plane skidded, veering. Straight! Ethan cried. Rudder now! Hale corrected. The aircraft shuddered, screamed, then finally miraculously slowed to a halt, just yards from the grass beyond the runway. Silence. No alarms. No screaming. Just breathing. Then the cabin erupted. Crying, shouting, laughter. People hugging strangers, falling into aisles, thanking God, thanking anyone who could hear them. In the cockpit, Captain Hale removed his headset with shaking hands. He turned to Ethan. For a long moment he couldn't speak. You saved us, Hale finally said. Ethan shook his head, tears finally spilling. I was scared. So were we, the first officer said softly. Fire crews surrounded the plane. Doors opened. Fresh air rushed in like life itself. When Ethan stepped back into the cabin, his mother ran to him, collapsing around him, sobbing his name. Passengers reached out, touching his shoulder, his hair, as if to prove he was real. News spread fast. By nightfall, the world knew the headline. Pilot declares death. Child declares hope. Captain Hale spoke to reporters later, his voice firm. I've flown for decades, he said. Today I learned something new. Courage doesn't always wear stripes. Sometimes it barely reaches the pedals. Ethan stood beside him, quiet. Someone asked, why did you speak up? Ethan thought of his father, of the simulator, of the moment the captain said, we're dead. Because, he said softly, I knew that giving up was the only thing that would really end us.